Hey guys, Jeff here, and in today's bathroom video from A to Z, we're going to be talking about the whole assembly of this floor. How to go from subfloor to finished 12 by 24 porcelain. We're going to be talking about the multi-surface bonding primer. We're going to show you how to use floor leveler, and then Dietra membrane, and then actually how to install the tile. Everything you need to know to make a beautiful tile floor in your home from A to Z in one video. It's all right here. Cheers. All right guys, so let me just bring you up to speed. For those who've been following along the project, when we ripped the toilet up, we were kind of disgusted. It's a little nasty, little dark, little dank, you know. I pulled the rest of the floor out because it wasn't glued down. And whenever you're doing a project like with a floor leveler, you want to start with structure. So it's not glued down, it's not part of the structure. So I've removed it and cut it out. I had thought about originally, you know, the idea of just cutting and replacing the wood around the toilet, but this is ugly, but it's solid. And I hate ripping out solid just to put in something new solid when I'm covering it up anyway, especially when I have structure. I'm going to be pouring a whole bag of floor leveling compound with a quick dry element to it. All right, and here's why. The level is sitting on a bubble. It's level, but it's raised almost 1/4 of an inch on each side, so I have a hump. And when I go to put in my tile, I'm going to be using the very similar 1/3 offset. I need a level floor to start with, or I'm in a lot of trouble trying to make this level. And I've got, that's my Schluter board, my leftovers from building the bathroom. I'm going to be cutting some strips and installing it along the edge, tight to the floor before I pour my concrete. For the following reason, this floor was cut out and replaced. And so all around the perimeter, there's actually a small gap going underneath the trailer. So if I don't close that up, all the leveler will just find that gap and drop right out. We're going to just prime this real quick. It's a really easy, simple system. I don't need a paint tray or nothing. Just pour it out and go. And it's going to be kind of rude. I'm going to be pouring 1/4 inch on the sides. So I'm not really too concerned about a whole lot of anything right now. I just want to get this primer on here, because what this does is it creates a really, how should we say, gritty, like a textured surface, so that your next product that goes on here really has something to bond to. Just roll it out and go. Now, the more leveler you're putting on your surface, all right, the less important having primer is. But because I have a hump, and one bag will do about 25 square feet, 1/4 inch thick, I'm closer to 30 square feet here, and it's going to be close to 0 in the middle, and just filling on both sides. And so in that scenario, I definitely need a primer to keep the middle from cracking and flaking. There is no way that you are messing around with a whole lot of floor leveler. But the truth of it is, most of us are never going to see a whole lot of floor leveler. Most of the time, all we need is about 1/4 inch. Because that's the case, most of the time we're going to need this bonding primer, where it's just going to be necessary to make sure that everything has got the best option for success. We're going to use the Level Quick RS. RS stands for rapid setting, all right? That means you can walk on this and tile within about 3 to 4 hours, depending on the climate in your home and how thick you pour it, and blah, blah, blah. We're going to have a pail of water, again, 5.5 liters of water. Buy these pails that have the measurements on them, okay? These are worth money in the bank because they're going to help you avoid all kinds of mistakes. Now, there's a variance on the amount of water you use. If you have an aggressive hump like I do, it's better to go closer to 6 liters just so you get more flowability, okay? It's easier to tool that way. Otherwise, you'll see that the viscosity of the product, it's gonna also have a hump when you're finished. It's not a perfect leveling system unless you get it nice and wet and you do a little tooling. So we'll just cut this open, pour it in, and we'll get mixing. Just gonna pour in about 1/3 to 1/2. See that? That's 1/3 of a bag, and it's like water still. This pail is almost completely full. So let's go pour it out on the floor and fix our problem. My multi-surface bonding primer is actually pretty dry now. I've added a couple pieces of Schluter on the face, on the perimeter, just because it was cut around to replace the floor. I know there's a gap. I'm trying to minimize the amount of this product that seeps out and lands on the ground underneath. Basically, because we have a hump, the goal is this. We're going to pour a stretch down each side, and then I'm going to come to the middle of the room and then pour the balance down the middle as I exit the room. And then it should all level out. Okay. All right, so it's obvious to me that I have to do a little bit of tooling. A little bit of tooling never hurt anybody. We don't need as much material in the middle, so we're gonna push it. This is a self-leveler, but a little bit of tooling doesn't hurt, okay? There we go. And as a result of the viscosity, you might find yourself needing to give it a bit of an assist for the first few minutes. I now have a level floor. So I'm gonna go maybe 1/8 of an inch in the middle and 1/4 to 3/8 on the very outside. That is going to give us the foundation for success for when we come back with our Schluter-Dietrich. So we have enough strength that we aren't going to have tile moving. We're going to have a nice flat surface for our floor tile. All right, here we go. We'll start with that. We're using the Schluter-Dietrich trowel, very small notches. You don't need a lot of thin set to embed the Schluter-Dietrich, especially if you put down floor leveler first. Now, because we've already pre-cut this, it's all about gently laying it into position. Here we are. And adjust that. Okay, now for all the professionals out there, Schluter does make a roller. It's a heavy roller to set this up, but you can definitely use your body weight on a rubber grout float to get a good bond. And if you want to know, you can just pull it back and have a look at the fleece. See, it's got nice peaked 100% coverage. That way you know that your process is working. You don't have to check the whole mat once you know if your process works. So because we can work on this wet, I found in my experience that if you just kneel right on the mat, you are going to squeeze the thin set away from that. You're going to get ridges and uneven areas. So using a board or some Schluter-Curdy really works great. Over here, I'm going to just hold my PVC trim in place while I oscillate the bottom off. Okay. Problem solved. We're just using the tile, adding a little bit of extra height for good measure. All right, those are out of the way. Now we're ready to put the first row of tile on. First order of business here is to fill in all these squares. That creates a structural element in the Dietrich mat. These squares are actually beveled so that the bottom of the square holds more material than what you see at top. Okay, and so by doing that, they've engineered something here that can actually increase the strength of the floor, the equivalent of another layer of 5/8 OSB or plywood. We're going to set it on that little green line, and we're going to put pressure and pull towards us, leaving a gap of about 1/4 inch across the back. We're going to go underneath the PVC trim. There we go. I'm intentionally leaving a little extra material back buttering in the edges because even after the floor leveler, there's still a little bit of a droop in the corners. It's really hard to tool an area when you can't be standing in it. This is all coming together really nicely. All right, here we go. There's the first row. So what I've got going on here, guys, now that we got the camera guy in the shower, thank you. I've got my square up against my curb. We're going to take this grout line, which matches the row on the back, and we're going to establish our alternating grout lines right there. Okay, so that's my grout line. My next tile starts here as a full tile. Before we go any further, we're just going to get that one installed. We don't have a lot of thin set left in this batch, so the goal here is to get as much work done as we can with this, and then we'll measure and cut the toilet flange while the new batch is setting up. Okay, here we go. Okay, again, the goal here is make sure these squares are filled before you do any directional troweling. Maximize the strength this floor has, and it's easier if you do that coming from 2 different directions. Really want to try to keep the edge of the tile clean so we can avoid squeeze out. And to that effect, I use my margin trowel here just to knock down that last ridge. Again, we're looking for 90+% completion on that tile, coverage wise, okay? I'm gonna line it up just to the right of that green line. That represents the grout line. Now, being a floor, we're gonna go with 2 on the short side as well, just to make sure that we don't get lippage. Nothing worse than when you're in your bare feet and you catch the corner edge of a tile, right? Keep it clean, and then we can press it into place because there's lots of room for squeeze out on that side. Beautiful. That went really fast. All right, now, I still got a little bit of this left. Flanges are 7 inches in diameter, but now that we have our tiles here, it's a lot easier to measure from this tile to the center or to the edges. So we're going to measure including that grout space so we can measure off the top of our tile. So I'm going to go 2 1/4, and then I'm going to measure from my spacer. Ooh, yeah. You know what? Just so we can be exact, I'm going to put that there just so I've got something to measure against, okay? There we go. 6 1/2 is just perfect. So we're going to take a little bit off the 6 1/2, all right? And then we're going to add 7 inches plus 1/4 because we added 1/8 on there. We're going to go 7 inches plus 1/4 so that we have the extra room there. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Okay? Not bad. Because my camera guy is stuck in the shower now, you're not going to be able to see me grind this out. But we did a circle in their shower wall. That video is a previous video, okay? So make sure that the links to the previous videos in the series are in there for you so you can learn how to cut this. That's the only thing that's going to be obstruction. This will be a next cut, tile cut. We'll deal with that in just a minute, but I'm going to go get this ground out and get this installed so I can make my next batch of thin set. We can keep this train rolling. All right, so this looks pretty darn fantastic. The only thing is, it's too long. So what we want to do now is measure the wall to the tile, 22 3/8, 22 1/2. We're going to go with 22 1/4. Make our life simple. Okay, so here we go. Double check our dry fit. You know, and if you're wondering, Jeff, why so much care about that? It's because right now this is flush with my Ditra, which means it's going to be below my tile surface. And I've been preaching this for years now. Your flange has to be very minimum flush with your tile, preferably up to 1/4 inch above it. So I'm going to use a flange extension kit when I'm ready to set my toilet down. So for now, I'm good with the dry fit. We got to get the rest of these squares filled in. Come on, baby. Here we go. Alrighty then. Now, you can take the margin trowel. Get the extra thin set out of here. We're not going to use it. It's probably covered in wax. But it's one thing to clean off a little bit. It's another thing to have a whole chunk sitting there. It makes it very difficult to clean out without risking damaging something. Okay. We got room for one more row here before we have to do the next layer of Ditra. There's going to be some water here, folks. Don't let it bother you. The water's off. Just a little bit of pressure left in the line. We are going to undo this so I can drill a hole in the next tile. There we go. We'll drill a little hole in the next tile that's only this big, okay? That way it'll be perfect when we're finished. I'm going to inspect my washer. That's actually still in good shape. If the washer's not in good shape, you can go to the store, buy a brand new valve, just like this one, and just replace the handle only. They've been making these exactly the same for the last 60 years, okay? So all the old ones, this compression fitting, whatever's going on here, that can stay. That's the valve body. This is the valve, and you can screw a brand new one on if you need to when it's time, okay? That's a great hack for somebody. Make your life easier. Now, I don't have much thin set left, so I'm just going to empty out my pail. And we'll see if we can get one more tile installed. There we are. We're going to just set that right there. Gently. We're going to set this right here. Set up my grout line. Perfect. Every time. Just enough. I'm going to use the same trick again. I'm going to set this guy up where the water line is. Okay, I'm going to leave that trowel there. Got my tile cut for the space. Now, I get to put that right against the wall. I have an extra 1/8 of an inch here. So I'm going to mark this, knowing that my tile is going to move this way. And I mark the back a little bit wider than what I need. okay? So when I actually install it, it slides over top of this hole. I'm resting it on the trowel. Same thing, getting right over top of it. And a mark here, and a mark a little wider. There we go. Now, the flange cover that you buy is 2¼ inch, right? So it's plenty big enough. So all I do, translate this information here, here, 3 3/8, make it just a touch wider, and 5 and a hair, just make it a touch wider. Now that gives me lots of room to get that on, and lots of room for a flange cover to cover that. This is like the best of both worlds, right? You know you're gonna have a great big silver flange cover here. That's awesome. Time to go grind that out. Now, let's see if this is actually gonna fit now. Yeah, it's beautiful. Now we're ready to turn the water back on. First step though, let's get this nice and flush. I feel like it's a little bit proud here. There we go. Welcome to Guardia Surface Protection. It's a self-adhesive for hard floor surfaces. Tile, laminate, vinyl, hardwood. I just know that when I start working out of this room, I'm gonna be covered in thin set, and so I can protect the floor from all of that damage, debris, and everything else by using this. That way I can feel free to put my tools out here, and I'm not gonna make a mess. 52 by 24. I've got room here for Vanity up to 24 inches, but even if I go with an 18, okay, that comes out here. So even if I go with a shallow one, and let's say we go to 30 inches out here, the way that the Vanity works is there's a gable end over here, which is just gonna squeeze by this pipe, and a gable end over there. So as long as my tile comes over here somewhere, and over here somewhere, the other end of the gable will be over here. Nothing else in here is structural. So when I'm doing my tile work in this environment, I'm not trying to be cutting perfect around all the pipes. I'm trying to make sure that I'm bringing my tile up past the front where it disappears. It comes to the wall here for structure. So I've got load transfer proper. That's all I'm worried about. This isn't the time to be detail oriented. This is exposed. This is all buried. So let's keep our life simple. Don't complicate things if they don't need to be. And if you want to know how to waterproof your floor, we did that video in the other bathroom on this project. We have a tub, and whenever there's a tub, you want to consider the concept of waterproofing. Tubs and toilets both overflow, but tubs more than toilets, to be honest with you, especially nowadays. Modern toilets, man, you really got to work hard to overflow a modern toilet. If you're overflowing a modern toilet, consult a physician, all right? You're doing something wrong. There we go. I got a bulge here I'm not happy about. Right here. No one's ever gonna walk there with 200 pounds of square inch force. That is just the magic of floor leveler catching a piece of dirt or foam or something. All right. Okay. Better to get rid of that than to compromise how the tile is sitting. That is some damn fine directional troweling. Now I get to pull up my laser level. I'm shooting it down that grout line and up onto the wall. Bam, right there. There we go. So we're gonna start on that laser line. Boom. Okay, you can see right here. And I collapse my ridges pulling towards me. Oh, nuts. Don't collapse anything. Wait. I got ahead of myself, guys. There we are. Before I even put pressure on, look how good that bond is. Lovely, lovely, lovely. But what good is the bond if you don't got the clips? Whew, that was a close call. All right, collapse. And now my laser's off. Great again. Yeah, I'm making my life really difficult here. Between me setting and forgetting it, and the laser level being all over the place, and not having clips, that's just, I have no confidence. That is not my system. There's only one thing to do. You guessed it. Start all over again. If you don't have confidence in what you're doing, don't do it. Now, start all over again. It's not the end of the world It's like having one more tile in the project to do. Integrity is going to cost you a little bit of time and a little bit of inconvenience. But if you're in the trade, it also means you're always going to have a job. Let's set it where we're supposed to be. There we go. Collapse those ridges. Now that is much better. That's the cut. 16 and 8. So 8, 16. That's my cut it to go around the water lines. Because there's nothing in that cabinet that's going to be touching the floor anywhere near there. So there's no sense me trying to cut perfect. No one's ever going to see it. 6 3/4. Perfect. Now the reason I'm avoiding those 2 water lines like the plague over there is because I poured the floor leveler on this floor. You can still see those caps. Okay, those are those aluminum caps there. And they're there. I knew I was adding Dietra. I knew it was going underneath the vanity. So I was not too concerned about that. So now I'm just cutting broadly around it. I didn't want to have to waste the time cutting those things out at the end of a long day while I was pouring floor leveler. And I knew they weren't going to be of any consequence. Might I suggest that if you're new to DIY, do your first couple projects being pretty precise until you learn all the ins and outs about what you can get away with and what you can't. There are all kinds of ways to save time and energy and materials. But you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. Now consider this. What if you bought a vanity that has legs and you can see underneath? That's a totally different beast then, isn't it? Well, I'm going to do that. Because I only buy vanities with legs when all my plumbing comes through the wall. Whenever it comes to the floor, I always buy a full cabinet that goes to the floor. For that one specific reason. Okay? It's a great rule, actually, when you're renovating. If your plumbing comes through the floor, buy a cabinet that goes to the floor. If it comes out of the wall and you want to have that extra space to have to clean all the time just to create that illusion of space, or because you're going for a design aesthetic, then go right ahead. Okay, there we go. Okay. That area there, that's going to be structural, right up against that wall. But here's my next tile row. If you're a fan of this channel and you've seen me do tile before, you're probably saying to yourself, Jeff, why didn't you measure from the door backwards, right? And put the cut by the shower and leave this nice and full tile. And the answer is, hard to do a full tile here. Everything's out of square. I am going to be finishing off the sill here with a marble strip. And I'm more concerned in a small room with how the tile looks up against the shower. Because that's really what you're looking at. When you come around the corner and look in the bathroom, you're not looking at your feet, you're looking into the room. And so the first thing you see is where the tile hits that shower door. I put more importance on that than anything else. Now, I'm not going to do all those cuts. I'm going to put my tile in that goes underneath the vanity. I'm going to stick a piece of scrap in that corner where the structural load point is. And that's as simple as it's going to get. This is for a gable point load. Boom, done. Couldn't have been any easier. Okay. We're going to go 15 1/4. You'll notice that because of that little bit of hump, I've had some squeeze out along the edges because I had to go a little more thin set to level this floor off. Means I'm going to have a little bit of work before I can grout. Now, my marble sill I'm going to bring from here to here where my vinyl is. It's going to fill that whole space. So my next measurement, I'm not going to cut it into the door. I'm going to come a little shy of the jamb. Wow, 3 1/2 is even a little bit. 3/8. And it's different over here. I knew it. I knew it wasn't going to be square. You can't finish with a full tile if the room's not square. This wall is like this. Big surprise. All right. It is what it is. Now, this is kind of like cutting at the bottom of the shower. I've got something I can measure from now. Okay, there we go. It's nice to have a smaller tool once in a while. So we're going to line that up on the floor one more time. And there she goes. Money in the bank. So we're going to just mark the tile here. That's my grout line. Our tiles are 23 3/4, give or take. So that's where I want my other measurement. That's 3 1/4. Okay, and then over here, my gap is going to be almost 3 1/2. But because I'm using base, I can't do that. I can't cheat off the jamb. I got to get that as close as I can. We're going to go 3 1/2. Got to keep that nice and tight. 3 1/4, 3 1/2. That means wet saw. That is not perfectly straight. It's close. Actually, it's pretty darn close. For eyeballing it, that looks all right. We're going to dry fit this though. Make sure that I'm going to have a consistent grout line. That's nice. And I'm not going to worry about where it lands on this mess. Not too specifically, because I can cut the other stone to close the gap, and there's going to be a silicone joint. Remember, whenever you're tiling, every time you change material or change plane, you silicone. You don't get cracks with expansion contraction that way. Okay, there we go. Now we have to find the outside edge that's factory that matches that profile. Okay, that's the key here. It's not enough to get a piece that's the right size, it's got to have the right finished edge profile for the grout line. So that's here, that's my corner. All right, so by flipping it around backwards, I can just mark it shy. That's my length there. There we are. Same amount of love goes into every piece. And just for good measure, that little square I drew there, I know which edge is the two finished edges of tile when I'm setting this in, because I'm trying to set this in, squeezing out to the perfect height. And I don't want to put the rough cuts in and afterwards. If I put it installed backwards, after you go to grout, I'd probably see a chip on the tile or bad edge, or it wouldn't be straight. See, that's perfect. Same thing over here. This is an exposed corner. Unless I buy a 24-inch vanity, then I'm covered. But I haven't bought it yet. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. I also want to have the grain in this tile going the same direction. So here's my square, all right? Same thing. I'm gonna have baseboard. I don't have to be too perfect. No sense being any longer than the other tile. Here we go. Okay, we are gonna be just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, you did notice, nothing I did today requires a whole lot of strength. This is the kind of job that anybody can do. Well, that's it for today. Let me get this straight. We finished tiling in the shower. We did the butt joints and the tape joints, did 2 coats. We did the Ditra, we did the floor tile, all in one day. That is not a bad day of production. All right, now, I'm sure you're all dying to see how in the world I get my camera guy out. I'm gonna measure from the top of the sill out to about here, about 80 inches. 80 inches. Just a gangplank, really. So if you appreciate the extra effort we put into this video, give the sucker a thumbs up, all right? I will consider building crazy contraptions like this more often if you think it's valuable. This plank is 10 inches wide. Custom made just for you, bud. Just help lower your end down where the 2x4 is right in the middle of the curb. Not bad, eh?
Should work.
That should work just great. There you go.
Yeah. Don't look at your shooting, just look at the board. There we go.
Nicely done.